I feel like this can honestly be a precursor to my eventual coming video, Why Children of the Corn are the Good Guys. Or I may title it something else, but it'll be something like that. And so, anywho, this is hard for me to even really talk about. It makes you think about one of, what's that dude's name, Daniel Mackler's older videos, and even one of his recent videos about his experiences of witnessing abuse and child abuse in public, and even what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, intervening when like he was in New York and some lady was beating up her baby, and how when he intervened, everybody came against him and gave him those stupid crazy looks and told him about he doesn't have the right and all that stuff, because of course people just see all of it as discipline. And I'm not gonna lie, even before I escaped my own situation, I had a lot of experiences. I used to have a video about this before CPS snitched about the 1,950 plus abuse evidence videos, and this video got deleted. But I really wish I still had this one, because it did have it had pictures of some of these scenarios more so, or one of them, maybe two. But this can even go into my coming video about how we're all really eugenicists. But you're always made to feel like the bad guy for wanting to defend others and even yourself. Of course, as I say all the time, that's what gets people labeled off as quote-unquote sociopaths, and ODD, especially when they're in the cash for kids system and human cash cow systems. And I know I mentioned before that according to psychiatry, Batman is a sociopath, and he doesn't even believe in actually taking people's lives, which I feel like he's on some bull crap. But I mean, that's on him. He's going to be fighting the same people over and over again for the rest of his life, I guess. But anywho, before I even go into that, it's like, in all the situations I've had with, I guess I could say, confronting abusers, it's like, people always say the whole spare the rod, spoil the child thing. But it's just like what people say about guys who do domestic violence, especially. Guys who do domestic violence, they like to beat on their girlfriends or whatever and their kids, but they would never face another man. Or really anybody, but with abusers, especially abusers who abuse their kids, or even adults in the human cash cow systems, because they know that they can, and their kids depend on them, or they're forced to, really. They never want to fight anybody who steps up to them or hits them, and then they'll run off into the sunset. They'll get in their car and drive off. They'll talk about how you're crazy and they're scared of you. But it's you're scared of me, but you're not scared of hitting your kid, though. And then another thing, people say the spare the rod, spoil the child thing, but then they also have this idea, some of them, that once the kid gets a certain age, they can't beat them anymore because they're too old for that. Now they don't want to beat and strangle them. Sometimes, because I mean, typically the abusers will probably really never stop doing that, or really they go into other types of manipulation, because really the demons in them know that things are going to become a repressed memory for you. So they know that if they stop doing at least certain types of abuse at a certain age, which is common with SA, or really they're not attracted to you anymore once you're 10 plus. There could also be that. They know that once you don't remember anymore, it'll be easier for them to hoover you in a stain and never leaving them. And then they can also they can become a covert abuser, and then also after that, they can try to force you and manipulate you into taking care of them as they get older. Generally, they don't want you to leave because they know that they won't have anybody else. But I'm not big on the women and children thing. I never have been, because at least as of right now, women have rights, youth don't. So I don't like the whole women and children thing. And plus, women and evil moms and stuff, they get away with everything. They can do whatever they want to do. Women do everything men do, but they're just more manipulative with it. And they're also more covert. But to get back to the point, you really just don't want to beat on somebody who's your size or who you feel like is going to be able to fight you back. The real reason why some of these abusers will stop abusing their victims, at least physically, once they get to a certain age. Because remember that these same people that run around saying spare the rod, spoil the child and all that stuff, or even a lot of atheists say that, because generally our society is pretty atheistic anyways, so people just like to beat on whoever they feel like they can beat on. Really, that's really all it is. They will beat on whoever they feel like they can. They essay whoever they feel like they can. And nobody's protecting anybody. So many kids, boys and girls, they're getting sexually harassed and assaulted on public transportation buses. They're getting sexually harassed and assaulted on their jobs, and nobody cares. Nobody does anything about anything. Crap, so many, actually, people don't even talk about how many kids who are working their first jobs, or maybe they've worked before, and they're getting sexually harassed and assaulted by their bosses and co-workers. And I know there's even some recent case somewhere with some girl who was, I think she was 14, and she was in this type of situation with a co-worker, and he was stalking her. I think he tried to unalive her too, but I can't really remember. And these situations are so common, but nobody does anything about it because everything is whatever, really. I've had a couple of different people, actually, in different places tell me about going through these same things. I'm not gonna lie, though, for whatever reason, it seems like all the risky people, they ride public transportation. I'm not even gonna go into that, though, because I'm gonna be way somewhere else. I'm just having, memories, I guess I could say. I was gonna say flashbacks, I guess I could call them that. But, crap, I've even seen a situation recently with a Chomo bus driver honking the horn and waving and smiling at two girls who were somewhere from 12 to 14. And, the only reason he did it is because they were thick. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how people feel about that, but I'm just being honest. And it's just I just worry about a lot of people in this world because nothing and nowhere is safe. He literally stopped the whole bus, honked, waved, smiled, and they just looked so terrified, and they hurried up and crossed the street because they were crossing the street or trying to when he was pulling up, and it's just and it's just and then the thing about it is that unfortunately, because the family systems are so broken, people are able to do stuff like this because there's nowhere for nobody has any parents, any real parent. Well, most people don't really have any real parents to go tell this stuff to. And then when I do meet people that actually do have parents that actually care about them, at least enough every once in a while, rarely, they've been raised to be this goody two-shoes nice person, and they're scared to tell their parents stuff because, quote unquote, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. And I'm honestly, it's very rare to have parents and people by your side who give a crap about you. If you have somebody to tell something to, you really should tell them, because a lot of people don't have that. But anywho, before I go into that, but getting back to the point though, I don't know if I already said this, but these people, they beat newborns. The newborn who can't even talk, they'll have this idea in their head that the newborn is talking back, and they'll be slapping the newborn in the face. I'm talking about babies that can't even crawl, walk, stand, any of that. People who believe in this stuff, they do all of that. And this goes into what was I gonna say? Just generally, these situations. No, I forgot. I was gonna say that I did have a video. I never finished that sentence. I did have a video back on the evidence channels that I finally had put together a compilation, which goes into the whole we're all eugenicists things, and we're all raised to be what people love to say, psychopath and these other bullcrap made up labels. We're all psychopaths. We're raised to pretty much mind our business and not care about anybody else. into living this cognitive dissonance la la land. I do also talk about the fact pretty often that like generally actually helping people isn't legal, actually defending yourself isn't legal. I have a whole playlist titled Projective Heroism, Why Abused Kids Can't Defend Themselves, or why abuse victims can't defend themselves in general. There's a lot of videos in that playlist. I know the first couple videos are about how human traffic victims, they go to jail for unaliving and defending themselves from their own kidnappers. They go to jail for well, I've talked about before plenty of times anyways how like the kid victim is charged with CP and stuff like that anyways, so I don't even need to go into that again. But yeah, so I've always noticed that they're like the Freemason Chomo, real men hating, all the other things that I call them, lawyers, judges, and law officials, the people who make the laws and are supposed to like push the laws, they love abusers and they hate youth, and they don't want abusers to be held accountable of any type, and society generally doesn't. Whenever you talk about like actually defending yourself, whenever you talk about actually holding people accountable, people come to tell you that you're a bad guy and oh, you're just as sadistic as the traffickers and different weird, stupid, sick stuff. Also, if the Constitution was real, you're supposed to be able to do citizens arrest. People are supposed to be able to come together and arrest people. That's why if you hold somebody captive in your house, you get charged with unlawful arrest. And that's another reason why I made my my video and my playlist titled Red Rum's Evil Culture, but I generally call this Sixth Commandment culture, which I consider a form of a martyr complex, similar to what I like to call the Dronophile agenda, which is also a form of a martyr complex. And it's funny, everybody thinks that everybody's playing fake social justice warrior martyr, but nobody's actually doing anything about anything. And yeah, there's a lot I can say about that. These martyrs are in the interest of the abusers. They're really just flying monkeys and enablers, to be honest, and even abusers themselves. And that's why I made my term based off of a flipped around Aleister Crowley, the law at the Lima. He said, do what thou wilt is the whole of the law. To make a censor version, I always say, all abusers must fall should be the whole of the law. And that's what I stand by. Everything else is whatever. And I'm trying to think about what else. So now to get to the main point, what I was going to say a little while ago before I remember the other thing I didn't say, as usual. These situations always remind me to just be glad that I was able to run away and that I'm out here. And people can talk junk and call me a bum and tell me that I don't have anything and I'm broke and all this different weird, stupid Matrix bullcrap that doesn't even matter in the end. Because according to the Apocrypha, 1 in 7,000 people go to heaven, and that was in an Apocrypha book about Abram. So if it was that bad that long ago, I can only imagine now. I don't even remember what I was about to say. I'm just glad that I got out though. So it's like, people can say whatever, but it's like, for a lot of people, especially people that become vagabonds, that's not really what I consider myself, but for a lot who get out here and they call themselves that or nomads, in the end, you spent your life fighting and trying to figure out how to like run away, or maybe you even got kicked out, you're just a foster kid, and in the end you can just be glad that you got out. Because it's like, when I see these situations, these usual typical situations, and like especially like the different situations of like abusers trying to like make me feel like the bad guy for like stopping them from almost unaliving their kid and stuff like that, it's like, I'm just glad that I got out. That's why I say, I still, like, even last night, like, I was having a mommy issue breakdown. I still have, like, these fairy tales going in my head about, like, adoption. But honestly, I don't trust any grown-ups, as they call themselves. I wouldn't even trust the average person to even be in that type of position and have the type of, like, power dynamic and control over me. People aren't even that safe, like, really. It's like I've never had a melanated woman try to, like, do anything SA to me. Guys all the time. I have had, like, white women do that, though. Like, especially this one lady back when I was in Cali who, like, wanted me to climb in her trunk for snacks, and she wanted to use me for some satanic ritual. And her boyfriend were telling me to get naked for $20. And, Of course I didn't go for that, but other than that, I've never had melanated women try to get with me. But still in other ways, they're also really, like, abusive and like, all that stuff. I just generally don't even trust, like, older people. I'm kind of choking, but I wouldn't even want anybody in that position. I'm constantly reminded when I see things like this that I should always continue to be glad and grateful that I'm out and that I get to be quote-unquote homeless, and I get to not be, I mean, you do get treated like crap, so generally you are still in a situation, at least when you're, like, in cities and you're where people can see you, you're still reminded constantly that you're subhuman and don't matter, and that people generally don't like you and only want you around when they want to, like, take advantage of you if you let them. But if you can hop around that, you'll always be glad that you just got out the situation. It's like if you don't, not saying don't try, but if you never figure out how to accomplish anything else, you'll just be glad that you at least got out your constant torture and that you escaped whatever you were trying to escape. I even seen, like, some post or something on YouTube that I was going to use in a video. I still had the screenshot, and it was adults are like children but with axes or something like that. But it's like, older people have all the power, younger people get life sentences and get charges for any and everything, even things that aren't even crimes for older people, as I've always talked about since even before the abuse evidence channels. And then what else was it? Oh yeah, and this situation that happened a little while ago. Now, of course, typically churches aren't going to want to let you in if you're homeless. And I had a lot of stuff then, because that was, like, when I first came to, like, where I'm at now, and I didn't really have anywhere to stash my stuff then. So I did have, like, my book bag, and I think that was all I had that day, but that's not even the point. They really didn't want to let me in because they generally don't even like homeless people. And then also, people around here claim to think I'm decades older than I am, but they still knew that I was young, and that makes it worse because they have this, oh, so you're fast and grown, and there's somebody you're supposed to be with that you're not with. And that's that, not even just quote-unquote black people, pro-abuse, parent worship stuff, as I call it, but it's also, like, a big southern thing and, like, religious side to that. And that reminds me of something else I was thinking about earlier. I'm about to go on a little rant again. It's like, people spend their life worshiping their parents, even though that's actually idolatry and that's a sin itself, who don't even like them and having cognitive dissonance and saying they did the best they could. But it's like, if 1 in 7,000 people go to hell, if 1 in 7,000 people go to heaven anyways, and you're spending your whole life getting beat on and strangled and told when you can use a microwave and when you're allowed to eat by somebody who doesn't give a crap about you because you feel like you have to worship your parents because the honor thou parents thing, you're probably going to hell anyway still. So it's like, shoot. And that's really not even how that's supposed to go, because that's still idolatry. Because even in the Bible, it says that Jesus came to bring a sword and, like, turn the parents from their children and children from parents, stuff like that. So, like, you're still off. You're just, like, in a whole bunch of religious bullcrap anyways, but it's like, you're still probably going to hell anyways. So it's like, you're getting beat on at 45 and told you're not allowed to boil the egg past 9 p.m. to still go to hell, because you think that if you do it, you'll go to heaven. And you're still gonna burn for eternity. Isn't that crazy? Okay, but going back to what I was saying. So I asked this church if I could use the bathroom, and I went in there expecting something I really try to, like, avoid, because, like, as soon as I see things like this, I start splitting. And this is why I'm glad that, like, every time I have run in with law enforcement, they're not supposed to do this, but every time I do, they always take like any type of protection I have, my pepper spray, anything. Every time I've run with law enforcement or security type people, which hasn't really happened since I've been in the South, but that was really common in like, well, nah, because there was this whole thing, the Shane thing, the Chomo Shane situation. But I don't even think I had anything then when that happened, to be honest. In fact, I didn't, I don't think. So yeah, I'm kind of glad that I don't have anything, because situations like this, I already started splitting into MPDs, and it's like, crap, if I had my pepper spray. But anywho, went in the bathroom, this lady was in there, and she was about to beat this, I guess he was like 2 or 3 or whatever, wait a minute, crap, she was about to beat him with, what was that, a 12 by 2? I don't even know what in the world. It was like this wooden thing, but it wasn't a pole. It's like, I did volunteer, unfortunately, carpentry back when I was in Cali because I was being used. Not gonna go into that. So like that was definitely 8 to 12 inches long, and it was definitely like a 8 or 12 by 2 or something like that. And it's like, she was about to beat him with that, and as soon as I walked in and saw that, I said whatever to her. Don't really remember because I was splitting so bad just in that moment. And I tried to snatch it out her hand. She ran out the bathroom and went to go get the elders. Or the quote-unquote elders. The other people. And then, of course, they told me about how they really tried to, like, give her time to go run and hide somewhere. and it's like, crap, she had, like, I ran up on her with, like, an AR or something. But they gave her time to go run and hide wherever she ran and hid at. And she called herself rebuking me because I was a demon and all of that. And I mean, generally, from trauma, you do get spirits in it. And the spirits can attach to, like, the MPDs and the wounded emotions. But that's so irrelevant. Of course, that's just the usual churchianity manipulation. Because it's like, you're doing the same behaviors to your grandkid, I think, really. To your grandkid that is MK Ultra and is also BDSM, because whoopings are BDSM. That's why we're all turned out anyways. That's one of the reasons. But you're doing things that's going to give him the same spirits and MPDs. And of course she's the usual Jezebel. So many like melanin, well also wait a minute, I keep choking. The true Yashara, a lot of us have like the Jezebel spirit, and then like a lot of quote-unquote black women and even quote-unquote white women have it as well. That's the mean girl, the stereotypical angry black woman, the Karen, all that's the same thing. I have 2 playlists about that. One titled essay theater, I don't know, Medea's the thumbnail, that's all I can remember, but it's essay theater something. Or generally, I typically call it Essay in the God of Theater, but I don't think that's what it's titled. The other place is called, Example Jezebel in the something. What else was I saying with that? But yeah, she's like one of those Jezebelic old, quote-unquote black church women where, like, they just have people call it the rest in beef face. I don't curse, though, but, like, just one of those, like, angry, grimacing type of looks that's never ending. In my experience, no, I didn't finish the last story. Crap, I'm going to the next thing already. Okay, so, yeah, so they just told me about how I'm a child, and, even though I actually told them that I was older than I actually am by some years, but they still said the whole you're a child and let God handle it. And it's like, for one, that's another one of the issues, and I have actually 2 compilation videos about this Jesus fix-it mentality that people have, but generally, we are gods, and we have or had dominion over the earth until the Nephilim completely take over soon. But we have control over everything. Everything that happens because we let it happen, and it's our fault. Like, quote-unquote Jesus isn't stepping down and punching people in the face while they're, like, trafficking people and sodomizing their kids and stuff. That's generally like our job. So yeah, that's what happened with that situation. And then they were talking about calling the police and different stupid stuff. I did talk about the situation once in some support group, but of course I was just told that everything was my fault. I mean, it's like, well, shoot. It's like, I mean, the point of religion is to make people hate quote-unquote God anyway, so. But it's all a game, it's all the NWO, and it's all false. And I wasn't religious to begin with. I think I'm stuttering and stuff a lot because I'm dissociating while talking about this. But I wasn't religious to begin with, and I didn't like mainstream Christianity stuff, but I can say that even though I already wasn't for it, I just hate it more and more day by day. But I'm not even going to go into that. Then the situation earlier, I've had so many encounters, I guess I could say, with situations like this, with like the mixed kid and the white mom who hates the mixed kids. It was just another one of those situations, to make a long story short. Generally, abuse is so normalized and okayed by society, but I could just tell that this was one of those situations. And it's like, but why do these people always like to run away? But I also know that, like, in the end, if you, of course, like, intervene, it can make some situations worse. Like, I know even with my own experiences, not that I ever really had people intervene, people like to call the police more now that I'm a runaway because, quote unquote, I'm not safe. But of course it's all bull crap. People just want, quote unquote, children or kids, whatever in the world, where they want them. They want you to be under the control of older people. They don't want you to actually be safe. That's why they'll make hundreds of 911 calls when you run away, and to give tips and to try to turn you in and get you locked up and stupid stuff like that. But there are no 911 calls when you're getting your face bashed into the ground and stomped on in the middle of Walmart by your dad or grandma or uncle, whoever. But yeah, I've talked about before how, like, I've been in situations with, like, even with, like, women who are together, especially white women who are dating each other, and then they, like, adopt a whole bunch of melanated kids to torture. And just white people in general adopting kids, to be honest. Now, of course, I know that the issue is that they have to save them from their black moms and dads. There's also that issue. I'm not going to be one of those people that pretends that I don't see that part, or quote-unquote save them. But especially in Cali, like, there's so many situations where, like, these melanated kids they're adopted and are thrown out onto the streets to be homeless. They're adopted by these white people, especially these, like, white women or men who are dating each other. And then they're not allowed around other melanated people or to talk to them. I remember, like, I was walking down the sidewalk one day and I had this white lady come out the woodworks and jump in between me and her adopted quote-unquote black daughter, because I guess she was scared I was going to say hey to her or something. I don't know what in the world, but she was shielding her from me. And then, like, a lot of situations since running away, even though, like, in these places where these situations happen, there's always, the reason I stand out is because I'm the only quote-unquote black person there in general often, but I'm the only black kid out there. That's the reason I would stand out. And it's like there's so many other hundreds of homeless white kids, 14-year-olds kicked out and dumped out foster kids running around here, but it's like, since I stand out, they'll like tell their adopted quote-unquote black kids, if I wouldn't have adopted you, you'd be like that kid over there, and stuff like that. And just having, like, adopted black kids give me these, like, weird looks, and, like, dang, I'm glad that I was adopted by white people. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, you go through, well, they're gonna end up screwed up regardless, really. Like, I feel like quote-unquote black people and quote-unquote white people are so similar anyways, but I always talk about the white woman, black dude duo, but there's also the black woman, white dude duo, and then there's also the white woman or man and Mexican whatever duo that I've seen a lot of situations with. Like, I know when I was a lot younger, there's these girls that literally just grew up abandoned in a dirty house where, like, the water, nothing worked. But I know before their dad had kicked out their white mom, she would like STABBED them in the face and stuff. And she would just do all types of stuff to them before he kicked her out. And I remember, like, we were in school together. Now, mind you, this girl was, like, almost 13 in 3rd grade. And the teachers would just... And she also would have on, like, too small clothes and stuff. And she still had the scar on her face from one of the times that her mom had knifed them. I don't even know if I can say that, but... So, like, there was this one time where the teacher was talking about whoopings for whatever reason. Of course, Southern bull crap. And the teacher was talking to her. She was like, yeah, I know your aunt doesn't play. And if you ever, like, slipped up or started making bad grades or something like that, then your aunt would beat your ASS. And then the girl's like, yeah. And it's like, well, why are these things so praised, though? Crap, I remember there was this one girl that would come to school with broken legs and everything, but I used to talk about that in the Abuse Evidence channel, so I just had a flashback about that, actually. But that's a whole nother thing. That I'll be way somewhere else if I can go into that. So the other thing that I was going to say with that is that, crap. Well, one thing that I can remember right now, as I always point out, the school system is a branch of the Cash for Kids system, and it's a part of the prison pipeline and the psychiatry pipeline as well, so they're only there to add to your abuse situation and make it worse. That's always something to keep in mind. As I always say, there is no help, you have to save yourself. But anywho, you're just made to really just feel like you gotta focus on yourself, but I get why, because you're made to feel powerless. Like, I even think about all the situations where, like, I got in trouble. Like, I even got in trouble for wanting to call the police because somebody's house was burning down one day. I got in trouble for calling the police because some dude had accidentally drove his car, like, off a ditch. Or into a ditch, I mean. But into a lake thing, too, because it was kind of like some sewer water. It wasn't really high, though, luckily. And there was that situation. I got in trouble for that. I would get in trouble for, like, wanting to help other people. And I even had somebody tell me, of course, recently, you got to stop wanting to be Captain Save-A-Ho or whatever and focus on yourself. I don't want to be Captain Save-A-Ho, and I definitely don't want to be a let me help you lunatic who's, like, not trying to, like, get myself into a better position. But, I mean, I can say that, like, I mean, before I ran away, like, even while in the abuse situation, I mean, if I don't try to do what I can to help myself and others now, then, like, I'm probably never going to. I mean, I would hope to, like, figure something out and get into a better position, but it's like, I don't know if that's going to happen. I feel like it's just like the whole, I'll give somebody else $1, or I help somebody else who's hungry when I finally am rich. But it's like, I mean, if you don't start now, then it's kind of whatever. You don't know if it'll happen, but it's like, sure, you could say that, but also if you don't start now, you'll probably never do it. But I don't want to be like one of those save-a-ho, quote-unquote, type people. I really don't want that, because I know, like, how toxic that can be. And I also know that, like, people, especially when people throw around that, oh, if you want to help people, and if you want to, like, beat up abusers and stuff, even your own, you're a quote-unquote sociopath. I know that, like, when people say stuff like that, and it can even go into, like, how people often focus more on, like, punishing abusers and, like, actually helping victims. I also 100% or 1000% also see the issue with that. Like, it's just like the whole idea of, like, I don't know, like, you want to, like, help. How do I even put this? Maybe you want to help kicked out people, but you also know that, like, it's not really that legal, and, like, abusers will try to, like, sabotage their kid further by saying, I'm going to kick you out at 14, and I'm going to not give you your vital records to make sure you can't get a job, but I'm not going to let anybody else get custody over you so they can help you get your vital records. So, like, how do I put this? Like, okay, no, that's not a good example. I don't know how I was going to try to get that to fit what I'm trying to say. I guess the better thing is that, like, how do I put it? Okay, for example, like, somebody's, like, beating their kid in the head with a baseball bat, and you beat them with a baseball bat, but it's also kind of like, well, in the end, there's nowhere else for them to go. CPS is unlikely to do anything, but at the end of the day, that's just being homeless and being trafficked all at the same time. Which is still, them being on the streets is safer than them being with their abusive family or CPS. But it's like, if you beat them to death with a baseball bat, well, after taking the baseball bat out their hand when they're trying to beat their kid to death, you start to think that, like, okay, where's the kid gonna go unless, like, I was able to get custody of them? And of course, like, obviously, as a street kid myself, I mean, that, obviously I couldn't do that. But I'm just saying for, like, other people, this, like, example can maybe work for them. So it's like, you do have to think about that. But also I know that, like, so many people go through, like, abuse because it's normalized to where, like, everybody goes through it, and if you don't, you're lucky. That also people are taught to go into the freeze response. And I've said before that society really works based off of the narcissist prayer, as people like to call it. I think it goes something like, the narcissist prayer is, that didn't happen, and if it did, it wasn't that bad, and if it was, that's not a big deal, and if it is, that's not my fault, and if it was, I didn't mean it, and if I did, you deserved it. That's literally how everything works. In fact, I feel like that lady in the video I made titled someone's response to my relative smear campaigning me all over the internet, her response really makes me think about how society revolves around manipulation, the Hegelian dialect, alchemy, and MK Ultra, order out of chaos, divide and conquer, and the narcissist prayer. Because it's like, generally, everything is about guilt tripping, projection, blame shifting. That's none of my business. I can't help you. I even talk about how, like, there's the demonic confederacy, there's enablers, there's flying monkeys, there's scapegoating, and it's something else. The bystander effect and the Lucifer effect. All of that stuff is kind of the same thing. People either join in on your abuse or they'll turn a blind eye, because generally people, they're not really allowed to do anything. But then it's also kind of like, okay, so now where are you going to go? Like, where are we going to put these people? I mean, if you try to go help a bunch of, like, street kids or something, it's kind of like, okay, well, where will I even put these people? And it's like, I could see that, because it's like, generally, you have to really focus on actually, like, helping victims, but in the end, nobody gives a crap about anybody, not even their self, and everybody's being used unless you're useless. This can definitely go on to my maybe one day coming video about how children of the corn are the good guys, because younger people definitely do have a light in them that I see all the time. This can even go back into my Amazing Grace video, how you can see other people as kids but not yourself. And even one of my videos about, I guess, either paraphilias or the drowned agenda. But I was talking about some post about how one chumbo said that he likes kids because of the light in them. That's definitely how it is for me. When I say that's how it is for me, I'm not talking about the chomo part. I had to add that in after the fact, so don't screw that up. And I definitely can see that, like, there's a point in time, sometimes at 30, but really especially 40 plus. I always talk about the issues that I've always seen throughout my life, and people that are 40 plus, from the sexual predatory stuff. Not that there aren't younger people with these issues. I mean, paraphilia started in quote-unquote childhood, but with stuff like that, it's like they're really set in their ways. But, like, with younger people, it's just different. There's still generally a light that, like, a lot of younger people will still have. And that's why that's one of the reasons why society is so against youth and is dead set on screwing all of us up through all the MK Ultra. And as I always say, abuse is an agenda, not a coincidence, because it helps create a world of messed up, turned out people who are brainwashed and will go along with any agenda that's pushed and can't become fully functioning adults, which also keeps them going along with the Matrix and any agenda that's pushed, because they can't think for themselves and everything is a cult. So last thing that I forgot to mention, and my throat may sound kind of dry, because it kind of is, and I'm half asleep. And yeah, so, like, I forgot to say that another funny thing is that people always talk about how, like, their victims deserve the abuse and it's discipline, and how, like, they know what they're doing. But you'll notice that, like, the abuser is always mad about something else. It never has anything to do with the victim that they're taking their anger out on. And of course, like, a lot of people are sadistic anyway, so they just get off to, like, beating on people and stuff. But you'll always notice that, like, the abuse victim is always really confused. If it's, like, a baby or whatever, or, like, a kid, of course, they're, like, always really confused. And then, especially if they're, like, really, really young, there's, like, just ways to, like, babies are wired to, like, always, like their parent and, like, to hug their parent and embrace them while and after getting beat up and stuff like that. And the only person I've ever heard talk about this was Daniel Mackler in a recent video, actually. And I've talked about this for years. You'll notice that, like, the abuse victims typically don't really know why they're being beat up. Okay, so the last thing. It also really makes me wish that I wouldn't have become chronically ill and dropped down to 80 pounds at 14 and got stuck there and all that stuff. Because, like, when I was 12 and stuff, and just before that, I was able to, like, beat up grown men and all that stuff. When I did get into fights, they were always with dudes, especially, like, older people. And it's like, I wish I could still do that easier. I wish I wasn't, like, sick and weak now and all that stuff. Because I'd be able to defend myself and other people better, to be honest. And I would say that a couple things that are going on. Like I said, they don't want to fight people their size, but I'm not their size either, and they don't want to fight me. That's why I say all of it is about power and control. Everything's about power and control. None of this abuse or quote-unquote discipline stuff is about what people claim it's about. And as I already said, like with the quote-unquote mixed kid stuff, because I don't really necessarily like the term mixed, but all that stuff is really just about self-hatred on the melanated parent side, and then all the racial stuff on Caucasoid parent side, and then also with the melanated parent. I mentioned before how it's also about, like, them trying to get with whatever is opposite of what their abusive parents and family and neighborhood was like, so whoever doesn't look like them pretty much. And then they still go through the same trauma, and then same thing with, like, the YNs, which honestly, I've talked about that a lot throughout the years and how I feel like it's stupid, but honestly, I get why they become the way they do as well. That also makes sense, the YN stuff. I mean, I've even said before, your family or community treats you like crap, and so you take out those same people or whoever looks like